Was there rigor or Riker?
There was not.
Okay, so these folks had been dead less than a couple hours?
1 to 3 hours typically is what they say that Riker should start developing.
All right, let's break it down. I'm joined this morning by criminal defense attorney Paul Townsend and also criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Brian Silber. Of course, I will start with Brian because he always chooses to, stay here for only an hour. He's a very busy man. Brian, I'll start with you. What did you make of that? I mean, that's who they called to start their case. What do you think they were trying to show there?
Well, I don't know if the hands in the armpit test is scientifically reliable, although someone who's been practicing as a coroner for over 30 years probably knows all the little tricks of the trade and, has a way about them. But the key takeaway is the rigor mortis. He's correct. The human body upon death, it begins to tighten up and stiffen, and that's a real good indicator of the time of death. It gives you a window. So it says that this homicide was relatively fresh. It hadn't happened, for instance, the day before or a couple days before, and that helps the prosecution with their timeline. And I think that's where this testimony is most relevant.
And all those are factors which reflect what the actual time of death is.
Yes, sir.
Yet temperature is key.
Yes, sir.
And the only information you have is that the bodies were warm, correct?
Yes, sir.
Based upon
and Riker had not started.
And that usually begins to occur within 1 to 3 hours.
1 to 3 hours. So that's the time frame that I was looking at.
Brian, it begs the question, why didn't you just take their actual temperature with a thermometer?
Of course. It seems like very sloppy work to me, but my instinct on this gentleman, he strikes me as probably one of these very confident guys who's been around the block more than 100 times. And just like in the practice of medicine, you have these old, very experienced, let's say ER staff who's done it all, seen it all. They may not do everything by the book, but they have the ways that work. But it does raise a very important question for the purposes of this trial. However, where my mind is going is this is not the only source of evidence to determine the time of death. For instance, this was an extremely bloody crime scene. And one of the factors that investigators can look at is, did any of the blood dry? Did any of the blood separate? Those are things that do not happen immediately. They happen over time. And when you come across a very wet, red, crime scene, that indicates that it's more recent than if the blood is dried and separated out. And I'm not hearing any testimony on that yet.